So a year ago, I posted my first video about beginning watchmaking and the tools I bought to start. Over the past year, I've acquired many more tools and replaced some of the originals. I'd like to show you the current state of my watchmaking tools. I guess you'd call it a collection, and what I've learned over the past year. So these are the tools I recommended in my first video called I Begin My Journey into Watchmaking. If you haven't watched this video yet, I recommend that you watch it. The information in it is still as relevant today as it was when I made it a year ago. So you're going to want to watch until the end because I'm going to show you a $4,000 tool that I got for 1/10 of that price. The first thing I talked about in my original video was screwdrivers. And I think I made a really solid purchase with these 3 Bergeon screwdrivers. They've served me well over the past year, but I did find that I needed a couple more sizes. So I added this 0.60 millimeter size, which is really tiny. It's got the white top on it. And then I also got this 1.60 millimeter size, and it's got the kind of pinkish top. And I've never come across a situation where I wish I had a different size. Something that I didn't think about too much at the time, but now I know that is very important, is to keep the tips of these screwdrivers dressed properly. And for that, I got this jig, which holds the screwdriver at the proper angle. And then I got this sharpening stone and oil. It just takes a few seconds per screwdriver, but it makes gripping the screw heads so much easier, and it really cuts down on slipping, which in turn cuts down on damage to the screw and any damage to the movement from a slipping screwdriver. In addition to dressing your screwdrivers, you can also keep your tweezers properly dressed with this sharpening stone. And while I'm mentioning tweezers, I still use my original tweezers, the number 2 and the number 3. But I've also added this brass size MM and this plastic tipped tweezers. And that I like to use this plastic tipped one for removing hands. It just helps to prevent any damage to the dial or actually to the hands. The next thing that I've upgraded from my original video is my movement holder. Now, while I still use and like my original watch cushion, the holder I had was not very good. And I almost immediately upgraded to this Bergeon movement holder. This is the model 4040, and it comes in both plastic and metal. I got the metal version, and I'm really happy with it. It's precision made and works very smoothly. In my opinion, it's money well spent. So here's an instance where I spent more money but really didn't need to. I bought these Horotec hand remover levers to replace my original $15 levers, but really these cheaper ones are just fine. Also, I still use the original $15 bench mat, which has served me really well. But to be honest, I just ordered this Bergeon 7808V bench mat, mainly just to be fancy. but also because I put a small hole in this mat, and I think it is a little bit distracting. I still use the same bench anvil, pegwood, and parch trays, but I did add this small membrane box to protect the hands, and also this dial holder to protect the dial. And I really like both of these a lot. So when I started to actually service movements, I knew that I would have to provide some kind of lubrication. So I bought these Horotec metal oilers, and they have worked out really well. They are well made, but surprisingly, they were not all that expensive. Each color of oiler has a different tip size, so you can really fit the oiler to the job. I found that most of the time I use the blue oiler and it works out pretty well. So now that I've got the oilers, I need something to keep the oils and the lubricants in. So I found this vintage set of 3 oil pots in a wooden container. I found this on eBay and it really wasn't that expensive. I think maybe around $20. I really like the vintage aspect of this. It's made by Favorite in Switzerland, and each pot is a different color. And I think they're made of glass. It's compact and well made, and I just really like using it. So as far as lubricants, I use different Moebius products, and I really like their quality, but they can be pretty expensive. So having a lid on the oil pots helps keep them clean and dust free. Now, as far as magnification goes, I still use this, but I discovered pretty quickly that I needed a more powerful magnifier for inspecting jewels and such. So I got this microscope type camera, and I found it helped for my YouTube videos also. In the original video, I was using lighter fluid and 99% alcohol for cleaning and rinsing the watch parts. And while that worked pretty well, I had an opportunity to trade a welder that I never used for this L&R watch cleaning machine and a staking set. The cleaning machine was in pretty rough shape. It was in pieces and needed to be rewired. And I did make a video over that restoration. And if you'd like to watch that video, I'll leave a link in the description below. It was a really fun project, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. Let me know what you think. And here's that staking set that I was talking about. It is pretty complete, but I also purchased a few accessories for it, and I like it a lot. Now, you may have noticed that some of these tools are actually used vintage tools, and these next tools also fall into that category. When you work on older movements like I do, some of the tools needed are no longer made, or if they are, they can either be very expensive or just very cheap and not worth the money. So in many instances, the best advice is to buy vintage. And the best place I've found to get many of those vintage tools is, you guessed it, eBay. So here are some of my favorite eBay finds. You may have already seen some of these if you watched any of my videos, but I also have some that I haven't featured yet. This is my micrometer, and I've actually done a complete video about it. So check that out if you want to know more. This is still one of my favorite tools just because it is so accurate and so very well made. It's great for measuring replacement jewels or pivots or the width of a mainspring. It just, it really helps. And this is a vintage tool that is used to repair damaged screw slots and to polish the screw heads. There are 3 different polishing surfaces, a steel one, a brass one, and a wooden one. And these are used with different grits of polishing compound. I haven't used this tool yet, but when I do, I'll be sure to make a video and show you. Now these are called bench keys and they do different jobs. This one fits into the slot where the winding stem usually goes. Usually on American pocket watches, the stem is most of the time part of the case, and it's not always so easily removed. So this tool keeps you from having to put the movement back into the case just to wind the mainspring. This particular model has several different sizes available. You just have to rotate it around and find the one that fits. This is really handy to have. If you work on pocket watches, I really recommend this tool. It also helps when letting down the mainspring. I find it easier to control it versus holding on to the crown. But don't mistake this bench key for this, which is a watch key. This is also for pocket watches, but it's for watches that were made before the keyless works were invented. Normally these watches would have a hole in the back of the watch and there would be a square post. This key would fit over that post and wind the watch or sometimes set the time. Now this is also sometimes called a bench key, but it's more appropriately called a sleeve wrench. It's for adjusting the sleeve that's inside the pendant of a pocket watch, and it controls the switching between the winding and the setting of a pendant set pocket watch. These next 2 tools were shown in my latest video restoration of a solid gold watch from the 1880s. This is a vintage cannon pinion remover, and I was lucky enough to find this one, and it's in its original box. I'm not sure of the exact date of the tool, but I would guess probably the 1950s. If you have a better approximate date, go ahead and shoot me a comment below. I'd love to see what you think. And then there's this one, and it's also in its original box, and it comes with a copy of its instructions. It's called a Crosby's jeweling tool, and it's used to turn up the bezel on a rub-in jewel. It worked really well on that last project, and I'm glad I was able to find it. They don't come up for auction that often. Moving on, I'm trying to be brief with each of these, but if you would like more information about any of these tools, please leave me a comment below and I'll go into more detail with any of them that you'd like. This is a vintage Seitz tool, and it is also used for replacing jewels, but it can also be used for some of the same things you would use a staking set for. It comes with flat pushers, pump pushers, concave pushers, and also reamers. It's a pretty complete original set. If you're in the market for one of these, it's helpful to know that the pushers are still available new, so you can replace any of the ones that may be missing from the set that you're looking at. With that, I'll transition back to some new tools that I've found. And this, a Chinese clone of a Horia tool, is probably familiar to most of you if you've seen any of my videos. Like the Seitz tool, this is also for replacing jewels. I've actually done a complete video review of this tool, which can be found in my library. I'll also link to that video in the description. All I've really got to say about it here is that I love it. It's really high quality, and it has yet to let me down when I needed it. Now, speaking of letting me down, this is a Chinese copy of a hand replacement tool, and it is a hunk of shit. It was less than $20, so it's not a big surprise that the tolerance on it are just so large that you'd be better off just using a handheld hand pusher. It's pretty much worthless. You may notice that I usually don't badmouth things too much and can usually find some redeeming quality in just about any one or anything, but this, I just can't. Enough said. Moving on. Now here's a Chinese tool that is actually good. This is used to pry off watch backs, and it even comes with pin pushers to help remove links and adjust the bracelets on watches. You will have seen me use it to adjust the bracelet on my new vintage Omega Speedmaster in a video I made a month or so ago. It works very well and it operates very smoothly. This one is a keeper. And this is a Chinese version of a watch crystal press. And again, this tool is actually very good. It comes with several plastic attachments, and as the name implies, it presses down the edges of acrylic watch crystals so that they will fit into the bezel of the watch. Then, when you release the pressure, the crystal expands and stays in place without glue. I've used it many times, and it works great. So I think I'll wrap up this video with this tool, the tool that I was teasing you about at the beginning of the video. This tool is called a Jacot tool. Now I've heard it pronounced several ways, Jacot, Jacot, Jacot. I'm not sure exactly how you say it, so I'm just going to call it Jacot because that's the way I like. Anyway, this is used to polish the pivots on the ends of the wheels and balance staff. These pivots can get misshapen on older movements due to age, and this tool will straighten those pivots back out. So I'm pretty sure that this is an old tool, but I have seen them for sale new. Here's an ad for one on ofry.com, and as you can see, it's over $4,000. I got this one for about 1/10 that off of eBay, and as you can see, it's virtually identical to the brand new tool and in just as good a shape. I haven't actually gotten to use it yet because I need to mount it in a vise to use it, and I don't have a vise yet, but I do have one ordered, and I'm planning on making a video as soon as I do get it figured out. So stay tuned for that one. So that brings us to the end of this video. I hope it was short and sweet, and I hope you found it entertaining. If you do, please consider subscribing to my channel. Hit the like button. It really does help me out a lot. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below in the comment section. I try to answer all of them as quickly as I can. So until next time, stay safe and God bless.